Welcome back, everyone, to another exciting episode of the Functional Longevity Podcast, where we give you insight on how to get fit, feel younger, live better. I'm your host, Chris Borda, best-selling author and owner of Y.E.S Fitness. And let me first thank you for taking time from your busy day to listen to what I have to say. Before we get started, let me thank our sponsor, Y.E.S Fitness. Most people lose the ability to enjoy life as they age. At Y.E.S Fitness, we help people age 40 plus get fit so they can live longer and enjoy those extra years doing the things they love to do. Some real quick housekeeping here. If you want to get a timestamp or a transcript of today's broadcast, head on over to yesfitnessct.com. You'll see a button for podcast. Hit that drop down, and it'll give you access to any one of our now 412 episodes. You can also get this broadcast wherever podcasts can be found. The summer workout benefit almost everyone misses. Every summer, somebody tells me I'm crazy. It might be a client pulling into the parking lot while I'm finishing a run. It might be someone walking by the gym, shaking their heads because it's 90 degrees outside. Sometimes it's even friends who know me well. They all ask the same question. Chris, why would anyone want to exercise in this heat? And honestly, I understand why they ask. Most people spend the summer trying to avoid being hot. They crank up the air conditioning. They park as close as possible to the front door. They wait until sunset to go outside. They look at 98-degree weather as something to survive instead of something to embrace. I've always been a little different. I actually enjoy training in the heat, not because I enjoy suffering, not because I'm trying to prove how tough I am. I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy knowing my body is adapting. There's something satisfying about finishing a workout without completely drenched in sweat, knowing you asked your body to do something difficult. Now, don't get me wrong. There have been plenty of days where I've questioned my own sanity halfway through a run. When the sun is beating down, your shirt feels like it weighs 10 pounds and the sweat is pouring into your eyes. You definitely wonder if there was a smarter time to work out. But every time I finish, I feel accomplished. I feel stronger. And over the years, I've often wondered if that feeling was simply mental toughness or something else was happening inside my body. Then recently, I came across a fascinating group of studies that made me stop and think. Maybe I'm not crazy as everyone thinks. Maybe there really is something happening when we train in the heat. Not magic, not some miracle fitness hack, real physiological changes. And the more I read, the more intriguing it became. Because the research suggests that exercising in the heat may actually help your body improve its ability to carry oxygen. If that's true, it could have implications not only for elite athletes, but for anyone who wants to stay active, improve endurance, and maintain their fitness as they get older. Now, before we go any further, let's get something out of the way. This is not an excuse to ignore common sense. I'm not telling you to go head outside at 2 o'clock in the afternoon during a heat advisory and try to set a personal record. Heat illness is real. Dehydration is real. If you have a heart attack, it's a problem. If you have heart disease, certain medical conditions, or take medications that affect hydration or blood pressure, you need to be especially careful. Today's episode is about understanding how your bodies adapt to stress, not about being reckless. With that said, let's talk about why scientists have suddenly become interested in something most of us spend the entire summer trying to avoid. For decades, endurance athletes have traveled to the mountains hoping to gain an advantage. Maybe you've heard the phrase, train high, live high, train low. Olympic runners do it. Professional cyclists do it. Cross-country skiers do it. Why? Because at higher elevations, there's less oxygen in the air. Your body recognizes that oxygen is harder to come by and begins adapting. One of those adaptations is increasing the amount of hemoglobin in your blood. Now, don't let the word hemoglobin scare you. It's actually pretty simple. Think of your bloodstream as a giant delivery company. Every second of every day, millions of tiny delivery trucks are traveling through your body. Their job is to pick up oxygen from your lungs and deliver it to your muscles. Hemoglobin is what allows those trucks to carry oxygen. The more hemoglobin you have, the greater your body's potential to transport oxygen where it needs. That doesn't automatically make something faster, but it gives the body more capacity to do aerobic work. That's why altitude training has fascinated coaches for decades. So researchers started asking an interesting question. Could heat create similar adaptations? At first, that almost sounds too good to be true. After all, heat and altitude are completely different environments. One has less oxygen, the other simply makes you sweat. Yet, study after study began showing something unexpected. Participants who trained in warm environments consistently increased their total hemoglobin mass, and not by a tiny amount. Most studies found improvements between 2 and 5%. Those are numbers surprisingly similar to what many altitude training studies have reported. That immediately caught my attention because in those findings continue to hold up. If they continue to hold up, it means your body may recognize heat as another stress it needs to adapt to. And here's another part I found fascinating. The workouts weren't brutal. The participants weren't sprinting until they collapsed. They weren't doing endless intervals. They weren't trying to survive boot camp. Most exercise for about 50 minutes, 6 days a week, in temperatures around 90 degrees. That's a lot of working out, 6 days a week, about 50 minutes. At roughly 60% of the maximum aerobic capacity, which is not overly intense. In other words, a pace where you could still hold a conversation. And why would researchers choose moderate intensity instead of all-out efforts? Because they wanted the heat itself to become your stimulus. If the workouts were too hard, fatigue from intense exercise would become another variable. Instead, they wanted to isolate the effects of heat. That's smart science. It's also making the findings much more practical because in these adaptations, if these real adaptations are real, they don't require you to destroy yourself every workout. That's something I think we all need to hear once in a while. Some people still believe every workout has to leave them exhausted. I've never believed that. Your body doesn't simply respond to intensity. It responds to appropriate stress followed by recovery. Sometimes moderate training performed consistently beats heroic workouts performed occasionally. That's true whether we're talking about strength training, walking, or perhaps even exercising in the heat. One of the studies compared heat training directly against altitude training in elite cyclists. The altitude group increased hemoglobin mass by about 3.5%. The heat training group increased it by more than 5%. Statistically, there wasn't a significant difference between the two. Now, before headlines start claiming that heat is better than altitude, let's slow down. There are only 7 athletes in that study. Only 7. That's a small number. Small studies are great for generating exciting ideas. They're not enough to completely change how we think. And that's something I really appreciate about these researchers. They aren't claiming they solved the puzzle. In fact, they openly acknowledge how much we still need to know. Most of the researchers in this area has come from the same collaborative group over roughly the last decade. It's not a criticism. Every field starts somewhere. But one group finding the same thing over and over again isn't the same as a dozen as dozens of independent labs around the world researching identical conclusions. Science gets stronger through replication. That's why I think it's important to be excited, but also humble. Right now, the evidence tells us heat training appears to increase hemoglobin mass. That's encouraging. Whether that automatically makes someone a better athlete, that's a different question entirely. And believe it or not, that's where this story gets even more interesting. So here's the $1 million question. If heat training increases hemoglobin, why aren't we seeing athletes suddenly breaking records? If your blood is carrying more oxygen, shouldn't you automatically become faster? You would think so. But that's not what the research consistently shows. And honestly, I love that. Not because I don't want the science to work, but because this is what real science looks like. Sometimes researchers discover something that's clearly happening inside the body without fully understanding what it means yet. In this case, the increase in hemoglobin appears to be real. Study after study has found it. But when researchers looked at the things athletes actually care about, like VO2 max, lactate threshold, or race performance, the results became much less consistent. Some studies showed improvements, most didn't. So, what's going on? There are a few possible explanations. The first is simply that these studies are small. Measuring athletic performance isn't nearly as straightforward as measuring blood. Think about your own workouts. Have you ever gone to the gym feeling great one day only to feel flat the next? Maybe you didn't sleep well. Maybe you were stressed. Maybe you were slightly dehydrated. Maybe it was just one of those days. Performance changes from day to day. Blood streams don't fluctuate nearly as much. That's why it's entirely possible that a real performance benefit exists, but these smaller studies simply weren't large enough to detect it. One study that included a large group of athletes did find improvements in VO2 max, lactate threshold, and power output. That's encouraging. But one study isn't enough to settle the question. We need more researchers looking at more athletes over longer periods of time. There's another possibility that I find even more interesting. Maybe hemoglobin isn't the whole story. Think of it, think of your body like a high performance car. Adding a bigger fuel tank doesn't automatically make the car faster. You also need a better engine, better tires, better brakes, a skilled driver. Everything has to work together. Your endurance works the same way. Oxygen delivery is incredibly important, but it's only one piece of the puzzle. Your heart has to pump efficiently. Your muscle has to extract the oxygen. Your mitochondria have to turn into energy. Your nervous system has to coordinate movement efficiently. Your technique matters. Your strength matters. Your recovery matters. Improving one system doesn't automatically improve every system. And I think that's an important lesson far beyond this research. We all want one thing that's going to fix everything. One supplement, one exercise, one diet, one workout. But our bodies don't work that way. Health is built by improving lots of systems a little at a time, not by chasing one magic bullet. There's one more possible researchers are considering, one more possibility researchers are considering, and maybe 5 weeks simply isn't long enough. Think about strength training. If you lift weights for 5 weeks, you'll absolutely make progress. But are you seeing your full potential? Of course not. The biggest changes happen after months, even years of consistent training. Perhaps heat training works the same way. Maybe increasing hemoglobin gives your body the potential to train a little harder, recover a little faster, stay active a little longer. Those tiny improvements may not show up in a 5 week study, but over 6 months or a year, they could accumulate into meaningful changes. Right now, we simply don't know. And I think that's an exciting place for science to be. Now, let's bring this back to you, because unless you're listening to this while training for the Tour de France, you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with me? Actually, quite a bit. At Y.E.S Fitness, we're not training Olympic cyclists. We're helping people stay capable. We're helping people hike with their families, carry groceries without getting winded, travel, play golf, play pickleball, keep up with their grandchildren, walk the dog. Take the stairs without stopping halfway. Everything we do comes back to one question. How do we help you stay independent for as long as possible? If heat training truly helps your body improve its oxygen carrying capacity even a little, that's relevant. Not because we're trying to win a race, because we're trying to enjoy your life. Now, let me be very clear. I'm not recommending that everyone start exercising during the hottest part of the day. That's not the message. The message is adaptation. The body was designed to adapt to appropriate challenges. The tongue twister. Strength training challenges muscles. Balance training challenges your nervous system. Walking challenges your cardiovascular system. And perhaps when done safely, heat challenges another system that allows your body to become a little more resilient. That's what's exciting me. Not suffering, adaptation. So if you're really walking outside this summer, if you're already doing it, if you're already out there walking, keep walking. If you're riding your bike, keep riding. If you're doing yard work, if you're hiking, if you're playing tennis or pickleball, you may be getting another benefit you never, ever considered. Just be smart. Drink plenty of water. Replace electrolytes when appropriate. Wear lightweight clothing. Pay attention to the humidity. Know the warning signs of heat exhaustion. Exercise early in the morning if temperatures become extreme. If you have heart disease, lung disease, or you're taking medications that affect your body's ability to regulate temperature, talk with your physician before intentionally exercising in hot environments. There's a huge difference between training intelligently and ignoring what your body is trying to tell you. I've been exercising for decades. One thing I've learned is that toughness isn't refusing to slow down. Real toughness is having enough discipline to make smart decisions so you can come back tomorrow. Longevity isn't built by winning one workout. It's built by stringing together thousands of small workouts over time. As I finished reading this research, I found myself thinking about something much bigger than hemoglobin. We've been incredibly good at making life comfortable. Our cars have heated seats. Our homes stay 72 degrees year-round. We order groceries from our phone. We avoid discomfort whenever we can. Now, don't misunderstand me. Comfort isn't bad, but our bodies were never designed to live without challenges. Every meaningful adaptation begins with a challenge. Lift something heavy, your muscles respond. Practice balance, your brain responds. Walk consistently, your heart responds. Maybe, just maybe, when it's done safely and intelligently, training in the summer heat is one more reminder that the human body is far more adaptive than we often give it credit for. I still smile when people tell me I'm crazy for enjoying a 90-degree workout. Maybe I am, or maybe I've simply spent enough years watching the human body adapt that I've learned not to underestimate what it's capable of. The research isn't finished. There's still plenty of unanswered questions, but one thing has become increasingly clear. Our bodies are remarkable. When we challenge them, respect them, recover properly, stay consistent, they often reward us in the ways we're beginning to understand. And I think that's a pretty exciting reason to keep moving. Don't fear the heat, respect it, prepare for it, and let your body do what it was designed to do, adapt. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of the Functional Longevity Podcast. If today's episode gave you hope or changed the way you think about aging, I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Remember, getting older isn't inevitable. Getting weaker is not. Let me say that again, because my mouth is a little dry. Remember, getting older is inevitable. Getting weaker is not. With the right training, the right guidance, and the right mindset, you can continue getting stronger, moving better, and living the life you want for decades to come. Until next time, keep moving, challenge yourself, and keep investing in your future because the best version of you may still be ahead. And I'll be back next week with more information on how to get fit, feel younger, and live better. Thanks for watching.